Hello everyone. In this lesson video we are going to be printing, and I don't mean writing letters, I mean printmaking, which is an art form that there's so many different ways to print make, but I'm going to show you just one today. I had originally bought these for International Dot Day, but we just didn't have time to get to it. So we're going to bring them out today, and it's a nice small circle, and it comes packaged like this. So it has two clear pieces of paper. We want to peel those off. You're each going to have one to use of your own, and it's very floppy. This is called a Gelli Printing plate. So you're going to use that, and you're going to get a very large piece of paper to work on, and you're just going to experiment with making marks or printmaking with this jelly circle. So I'm just going to go grab a piece of paper and we're going to get started. So everyone's going to get one of these really big pieces of paper to work on. We're going to end up filling the whole thing a little bit today and a little bit another time, and we're just going to do a whole bunch of different things on it, and we're going to turn this into something. So let's start though. How do we use these Gelli printing plates? Well, there's many ways to use it, but here at school we're going to be using some tempera paint, and I'm initially going to start you off with just the primary colors. Now I've substituted magenta for red and turquoise for the blue, so these will be our primaries, and I'll give you some white. I'm going to have this outside the screen so we have more room to see what I'm doing. So you're going to get a paintbrush, and you're going to get a piece of toweling. That's going to be very important. I just did some Gelli printing before I did this video, and when we're using tempera paint is very watery. It's very thin, so you want to make sure that you don't use too much of it. I'll show you what happens when you use too much. It's not the end of the world for this, but just something for you to know. So I'll put my paints back into the camera. I wet my brush, but I've dried it off on my toweling, so it's not really wet. And you just start with whatever color you want. I'm going to take some magenta, and I'm going to paint a nice thin layer on my Gelli printing plate. You can kind of see through it. And at first you probably think, oh, I don't have enough. You're going to have plenty. So I've cleaned my brush and I've dried it, and I'm going to take some white, and I'm just going to mix some white in there any way I want. So just kind of freestyle it however you want to do it. Drying off your brush though is going to be very important. So there. I think that's good enough. Now I can take the back end of my brush and maybe use like that, or your table might have something like this to make marks with. And I can do something like that and just clean that off. Now I'm ready to print, so I'm going to move this away so you can see how I do that. Actually, I'm going to use one of the papers I've already started. So I'm going to flip this paper over, and I'm just going to find an empty spot, and I'm going to press. You don't have to press super firmly, and that's because the tempera paint is so thin. There, it sticks a bit. Ooh, and that's how that one came out. Now it doesn't look like there's a lot on here, but we're also going to take a ghost print. A ghost print is just lifting off the paint that has been left behind. And I was right, there's pretty much very little left for that one. Okay, so that's one thing you can do with this. The next thing you can do, actually I showed you two things. I showed you how to use this and how to make sure you have it nice and thin. The next thing we'll do is I have some of these. These are just stencils, and they're made out of a plastic. And I'm going to set the stencil on top, and I'm going to go ahead and paint. Remember, I'm going to repeat it over and over again. Make sure you have a nice dry brush. So I'm going to paint right on top of this. You don't want it to wiggle away. Otherwise the paint gets underneath the plastic design and it won't give you a nice design. So I've painted thin, and it looks like you don't have enough, but trust me, you will have plenty. I'm going to clean my brush and go for some yellow, and again, very little. I'm just trying to make some green, and I'm totally fine if it doesn't come out all green if there's some blue. All right, so now I'm going to peel this off, and I have this and I have this. So I'm going to print this first. I'm going to flip my paper and print it in a spot. Remember, I don't have to press down super hard. And I'm just going to do that, lift it up. Ooh, that came out really good. I can take a ghost print. Let's see what happens here. Ghost print, not too bad, and I overlapped on another one. That's totally fine too. I'm going to set this aside. I'm even going to print this. So I'm going to come back here and maybe place it here, see how that ends up. So that's all there is to printing. All right, kind of cool. I have a couple other things to show you, and then you're going to get ready to do it yourself. Let me see. Okay. You should have some burlap. Every table might not have everything, so we'll see what happens. So, oh, I'm just going to start painting on this. Paint, paint. Remember, nice and thin because this is tempera paint. And, oops, clean it. Wipe it off really good so it's nice and dry. And then I'm going to go right on top with another color. I used magenta to get a nice orange. And then I'm going to take my burlap and I'm going to put it on there. But I want to use my paper again because I have to just gently press on the burlap. And then I'm going to lift it up. And you might be able to see that cool texture left behind. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to print. And that came out really cool as well. All right, last one. Hopefully I still have time on my camera here. Last one, I'm going to clean my brush, dry it really good. We'll take this. And there's a little piece of burlap on my jelly plate. You want to treat these jelly printing plates nicely. You don't want to dig into them. And I'll just do one color because we're running out of time. I'm going to take this and I'm going to comb over it this way, wipe it off, and then comb over it that way. So this also looks kind of like the burlap. And I'm going to show you about printing on top of something else. So, at least I think I printed on top of something else. Just gently do that and lift it up, and voila. So, you have a couple things to experiment with. And you can see on this one here, I didn't do it for you on the camera, but I had too much paint here, and the paint just kind of squishes out. So, but still, it left some pretty colors. Have fun experimenting, and I'll be around to see what you're doing.